The Chicago Bears hired Matt Eberflus. Many fans, including myself, were skeptical. Why would the Chicago Bears go and hire a defensive coach when they needed a bright offensive mind like Brian Daboll or Brian Leftwich to help Justin Fields get to the next step in his career? I mean, this move to many fans still does not make any sense. But here's the thing. Hindsight is 2020. In 2017, most fans, 99% of fans, I'm sure, were very happy the Chicago Bears hired Matt Nagy, who was supposed to be the next Sean McVay, who was supposed to help Mitch Trubisky get to the next step. And boy, were we wrong. So what's there to say that Brian Daboll or Brian Leftwich would have been successful? We can never know that answer to that question. But we can see what Brian Daboll did in New York and probably judge the decision and also base it on what Matt Eberflus is going to do in Chicago. Now in today's video, we're going to discuss why Matt Eberflus will be successful with Chicago Bears, and I'm going to give you some reasons for optimism. Now without further ado, let's get started. So one of the first reasons on why I believe Matt Eberflus will succeed with Chicago Bears is because the last two offensive minds that we've had, Matt Nagy and Mark Trestman, both had pretty unpromising careers here in Chicago. But with Matt Eberflus, I think he has a very good resume that Matt Nagy and Mark Trestman never had. Here's what Matt Eberflus did in Indianapolis, where he actually called plays. He inherited the 30th overall defense. 2018, the Colts defense was ranked 11th. Their passing defense was ranked 16th, their rushing defense was ranked, their scoring defense ranked 10th, and they were 10th in the league with turnovers. In 2019, the Colts defense was 16th, their passing defense was 21st, their rushing defense was 7th, their scoring defense was 18th, and in turnovers they were ranked 20th. Then in 2020, the Colts defense ranked 8th in total defense, ranked 20th in passing defense, ranked 2nd in rushing defense, ranked 10th in scoring defense, and 5th in turnovers. And in 2021, the Colts defense ranked 16th in total defense, 19th in passing defense, 10th in rushing defense, 9th in scoring defense, and 2nd in turnovers. This in turn kind of shows us why Matt Eberflus will be a much more successful coach than Matt Nagy, and that is leadership. Matt Eberflus has experience coordinating, calling plays for a much longer time than Matt Nagy ever did. I mean, Matt Nagy only called plays for 4 games. Given Matt Eberflus and Matt Nagy coach different sides of the ball, but still, I think that's still worth noting that as a coordinator, Matt Eberflus did a lot more than Matt Nagy ever did in Kansas City, and that kind of prepares him to do a better job than Matt Nagy ever did in Chicago. Now, the next reason on why I believe Matt Eberflus will be a better coach than Matt Nagy is if we go back to the interesting press conferences that Matt Nagy had. He often talked about being you, but with Matt Eberflus, while I'm sure he wants his players to be themselves, he's also going to hold his players to high standards, something Matt Nagy never did. I mean, one of the first things that Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles talked about were how they were going to take the North and never give it back. Matt Eberflus is going to get his guys ready, he's going to give them the maximum amount of effort, and he's going to get his guys to pay attention to the details, he's going to get them dedicated to the game of football, and he's going to make them disciplined. Matt Eberflus seems like the guy who's not going to ditch his quarterback. He does not seem like the guy who's going to pick his own agenda. He's not going to start his guys. He's going to start the best player who should be starting. And I think we saw that in the press conference, how Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles were very much on the same page that Justin Fields is the starter and nobody else, and how they saw some guys like Tevin Jenkins, Murray Borum. They saw how these 3 players have so much potential when it comes to what they can be in the Chicago Bears system. Now, I want to note one other thing. So there's a notion that this year in the playoffs, all the coaches who are succeeding are offensive coaches. And there's no denying that that is 100% factual. But here's the thing. The Buffalo Bills were a coin toss away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you look at the Bengals, that Bengals offense is all Joe Burrow. Not a lot of it is on Zach Taylor. So you see what I'm alluding here? Even though these offensive coaches were successful, they have a lot of things going from them. And I think that, Matt Eberflus might be able to break that trend. And I think he can do some really big things. And I think this all starts with the amazing coaching staff that Matt Eberflus has brought in. At our offensive coordinator, he brought in Luke Getsy. Then at quarterbacks coach, he brought in Andrew Janoku, who did some really great things with Kirk Cousins and who's very wise. And I think he's going to help Justin Fields get to the next step. Then they got a future head coach and one of the best wide receivers coaches in entire league, Colbert, at offensive line. I know they kind of went in the average direction, hiring Chris Morgan, but I mean, it's still something. And then at special teams, that remains to be unseen, but the rumor is that's going to be Rick Bidekera. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we have someone like Alan Williams leading the defense. We have Dave Bronzini being the linebackers coach, James Rose as the cornerbacks coach, David Orstreet II as assistant defensive back coach, and we have a rumor that the next defensive line coach will be Rob Marinelli. I mean, let me just say, this coaching staff looks much more better than Matt Nagy had in 2017. Matt Nagy in 2017 brought in his friends. He brought in a failed offensive coach in Mark Hufich, and that failed in Chicago. Then he hired Bill Lazor, who, in Cincinnati had an average offense. I mean, he wasn't anything great. Matt Eberflus, on the other hand, brought in a promising young mind in Luke Getsy, who helped the Green Bay Packers be one of the best teams offensively and has worked with some great quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers. I'm excited to see what Matt Eberflus will do in Chicago, and I'm excited to see what Matt Eberflus is going to do in Chicago, and I hope this video convinced you to have some level of optimism for the Matt Eberflus hiring. And if you enjoyed it, this is where I ask you to go and smash that like button, to go and subscribe if you like content like this, hit the notifications so whenever I post, and with that all being said, peace out and bear down.